this really nice woman came down and she sits next to me and she gets to chatting with me and she says, "Where are you headed, hon?" And I looked at her and I said, I have no idea. And she obviously responded and she's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I was like, I don't even know what city I'm going to right now. I'm running off the calendar. I am doing whatever my calendar tells me to do next. I am responding to emails. I'm on the surface, right? Checking everything off, hitting all the boxes, never missing a meeting, never missing a deadline. But I literally in that moment did not know where I was going physically.
Welcome to Spark Me, a podcast for women who know life is just getting interesting.
Each week, we spark great conversations, share lived experiences, real resources, and tap into the collective wisdom that comes from learning together.
If you're looking for connection, not perfection, fresh ideas, and a community where you truly belong,
then pull up a chair. You're in the right place. Welcome to Spark Me.
Well, hello, Michelle. It's so great to see you.
Hey, Liz. Awesome to see you too. It's always awesome to see you.
Well, I am super excited about today's guest. Sarah Ohanesian is joining us today. She is a productivity expert and she helps people and leaders, especially who are on the edge of burnout. And don't you always feel like you're on the edge of burnout?
Feel like I'm on the edge. I'm right in the middle of the burnout flame.
I hear you.
Oh.
Sitting in the bonfire as we speak, right? So with that, let's do a little introduction of Sarah to introduce her to our audience. Sarah spent more than a decade at the same company, working her way up from intern to chief marketing officer. And along the way, she saw what most of us feel: nonstop busyness, burnout, and people like us who care about our work deeply but are so fried. Now she's transitioned to a keynote speaker and a productivity strategist, and she's the founder of So Productive and co-founder of Super Productive. She helps teams and leaders cut through the noise so they can do the work that actually matters and still have a life outside of it. Imagine that, a life outside of work. So today we're going to talk about Sarah's own story of hitting the wall, what she learned by being inside so many great organizations and helping them get better productivity, and the simple real world changes that can make our days feel less frantic and more on purpose. So thanks for joining us, Sarah.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Oh my gosh, Sarah, this topic so on point. I think this is going to resonate with a lot of people. But let's go back. Let's take us back to, the beginning of your career where you're filled with hopes and aspirations. You've got these dreams of the future. What did a day look like and feel like for you back then?
Well, back then, you feel like you don't have a care in the world. You've just graduated college. You're starting your career. Hopes, dreams, aspirations, everything's possible. And then over time, it starts to feel like the better we do and the more people believe in us and trust us and give us more work, well, we get more and more responsibilities. And over time and over the years, the weight of that can actually become quite crushing for people. And so many of the really high achievers that I work with, my audience is typically very, very high achieving. They're the go-getters. They're the one that want to do the best work. Well, we're the ones that are also most at risk for this because we are capable. We are qualified. We are smart. We can do this work. And so what that means is people tend to dump more and more and more on us. And within a few years of starting our careers, it feels like this snowball effect has occurred. And then we wake up one day and go, is this it? This is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life, potentially, or at least until I retire. And so it really kind of gradually happened over time for me. But then I faced a moment where I was like, I'm pretty burned out right now. And unfortunately, a lot of people that I talk to, they're in that exact same boat.
So what was that moment for you?
Yeah, I'll share what the kind of aha moment that happened for me was I was in the middle of my busy career, traveling all of the time, so seemingly having it all, quote. Uh, and I was sitting at the airport one day, and this really nice woman came down, and she sits next to me, and she gets to chatting with me, and she says, "Where are you headed, hon?" And I looked at her and I said, I have no idea. And she obviously responded. She's like, "Oh my gosh, are you okay?" And I was like, I don't even know what city I'm going to right now. I'm running off the calendar. I am doing whatever my calendar tells me to do next. I am responding to emails. I'm on the surface, right? Checking everything off, hitting all the boxes, never missing a meeting, never missing a deadline. But I literally in that moment like did not know where I was going physically. Metaphorically, obviously that was a red flag for me, and I thought, yeah, I literally don't know where I'm going. And so the sweet thing was before she walks off, she goes, "Honey, just ask a gate agent. Like they can help you. It says it on your ticket. Like they'll help you figure out where you're going." And I thought, I don't think they can help me at this point. It feels like we're beyond a gate agent being able to help me. But it really was a moment when I finally did board that plane. Like I gotta get it together, because just living every single day, doing whatever pops up next, whatever someone else asks of me, I think there's more to life than this. And unfortunately, pretty close to that same period of time, my mother-in-law, who I was very close with, was diagnosed with a brain tumor. She died a few months later, and a woman who had worked her
Mm.
entire career really hard, had a wonderful career, but she was diagnosed at age 59, just way too young. And so for me, I was really hit hard by this conversation with this woman in the airport, and I thought there's got to be more than this. I can't just be living off the calendar, doing whatever pops up next, and then potentially die. Which it sounds extreme, but according to World Health Organization, burnout is a real health crisis and epidemic right now, and death is one of those factors, unfortunately.
Well, that is so true. And we want to touch on that. But before you got to that moment, Sarah, take us through. You were at the same company for 15 years and you worked your
Mhm.
way up to chief marketing officer. So talk
Yeah,
about achievement, right? And,
right.
and like you said, it kept snowballing, right? What was what made you think the way I'm working now is not okay? Like, what did a day look like? And, to kind of bring you to that moment of burnout where you just said, this just isn't okay anymore.
Yeah. Well, I'll say, what did a day look like? What did a night look like? What did the middle of the night look like for me? Because that's what it was. It was all the time and constant. And I need to be clear. This was not because my company, who was a wonderful company, no one there said you have to do this. And I want to make that distinction really clear. I am not blaming them. I'm not blaming anyone else. This was my own problem. My worth was really tied up in my work. And for me, that meant do more, work more, longer hours, overachieve. So a day in my life was literally go to the office, work all day, come home, grab like a snack, talk to my husband briefly, and then both of us get back on the computer and do it again until we fall asleep. And I talk about the middle of the night because the chronic insomnia actually set in for me as well. So I was having sometimes 3, 4 days in a row where I'm like, I haven't even slept because my stress level was getting so high. And that was feeding this insomnia that I was suffering from. And so a real scary moment for me also when I knew we have a problem here was when the doctor said to me, driving when you haven't been sleeping is potentially more dangerous than driving drunk. And I would never drive drunk. This is something I would never even think about doing. But yet, here I am driving a car when I haven't slept in 3 or 4 days. That is more dangerous. And so that moment was a real wake up call for me of like, this is not okay. And I could hurt myself or someone else. And that's just obviously not okay. So a few things happened there where I thought, okay, we really have to make a change and do something about this.
And so you had that moment. I mean, I think I can totally relate to that story, right? I mean, we Michelle and I joke because I like work on my sleep where I turn my phone off and stuff like that overnight, and she'll still be working
Yeah.
at like 3
Yep.
a.m. sending me text messages. And it's really hard to like turn off a creative mind.
Yes.
And a hard, and if you're a high performing individual,
Hmm.
it's really hard not to send that email at 10 p.m. just to like get it done.
Yeah.
So so what were the tools that you started to like look at, when you realized like my life isn't working for me? How am I going to adjust? I mean, because I'm sure there you couldn't just blow up your life, right?
No.
I mean, so you had to do something to work towards a change.
Yeah. And I really appreciate you saying that because it's one of the things that when I keynote and speak at different conferences and events, it's something that people really come up to me that they appreciate that I'm saying. We're not blowing up our whole life here, right? Because it's not going to work really well if you never check your email, like never pay attention to your children ever anymore, stop paying attention to your elderly parents. Like that's not going to work well because we have real core responsibilities. And so one of the things that I try to encourage people to do is just take one step at a time. So not changing everything in your life, but changing just one thing at a time. And that could be as simple as reclaiming 20 minutes to work on something that feels really productive to you, really important to you. It makes you feel like I'm getting somewhere. And that can be personally or professionally, but reclaiming these small bits of time in our day so that we feel like we're getting somewhere, that can change our entire mindset. So that's one piece, is like one small decision at a time to really shift from being busy and burned out to feeling productive. The other thing that I spent a lot of time, and I still have to work on this, is thinking about what's good enough. There's a lot of things. I'll tell you, this is maybe an overshare here, but I'll just all my cards on the table. Last night, my husband puts the Gatorade in the refrigerator. Okay. And he puts them in and they're like not organized. I want the Gatorade to be like color organized. My books behind me are in rainbow order. Now, I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a lot of layers to this that we could unpack. But I share it because it's a funny thing about like, why do I feel the need to take 5 minutes to organize the Gatorade by color in the fridge? Like that's so silly, but yet I feel the need to do it, right? And I'm sure that's some OCD things going on. But it's been a really helpful tool for me to think about like what is good enough. What do I need to do? You do not need to organize the Gatorade in the fridge. That's so silly. So what is good enough? What does good enough look like on a project, on a task, on something that really matters? And I'm not saying lower the bar, but I'm saying be realistic about what is good enough because sometimes you do not have to go above and beyond. Like the Gatorade is going to taste the same whether it's organized or not. And it's fine. And so what's fine? What's good enough? And I think that's just a real conversation high achievers have to have. So,
Yeah, I could totally feel that one, but because the Gatorade's one thing, but then you go into your work world where I
yeah,
feel like there's no such thing as enough. I could go forever. And then I have friends who are surgeons and like, are you ever good enough there? Like they think education has to continue forever. You can always get better. But the Gatorade is a good example. Like, hey, there are things that can be good enough where you can like take the foot off the gas a little bit. But
totally. Yeah.
I'm really fascinated. I'm really fascinated by like that moment you had in the airport, right? Where you're like, you suddenly had this moment of realization that, I don't even know where I'm going, like literally and figuratively. And that's like an exciting and scary moment at the same time, right? Because it also depends on where you are in your life, right? And you
Mhm.
kind of talked about speaking to women who are like, you don't have to blow it all up, but you can be in a different circumstance. And I'm wondering what your circumstance was at the time, because I've found myself as I love architecture. I love running an architecture business. I love it all. But at one point when it was so overwhelming, like I'm a single mom, I'm running a business, I'm doing all these things. And it felt like I think I've painted myself in a corner. Like, I don't
Mhm.
think I could get out of this if I wanted to, right? Like,
Yeah.
like I have bills to pay, kids relying on me, I have people who work for me relying on me, I have clients relying on me, like, and if, that goes into my story, but I'm interested in
Yeah.
your story at that moment when, where were you and how did you decide I'm going to go from CMO to helping women with productivity? What
Yeah.
was that shift like?
It's a scary one. Just as you're saying, we have these real responsibilities, and a lot of us have bills to pay. We're not independently wealthy, most of us, and so I think it's really critical to think about back to what Liz was saying earlier, like those small steps that you can take. And so this concept of even having a side hustle, having something that you think, I did start this business before I really truly launched into it. So it was a project I had started on the side and I was thinking about it and I was talking to people about it. And then that led me to think, I've got something here. I could really do something with this. So I would always encourage people because the whole blow it up and take a deep dive, and I don't know how practical it is. Some people based on their personality that might really, really work for them. For most of the people I work with, that's not going to go well and be too scary. And so think about what can you do alongside with what you're already doing. And that can be a goal or a project or starting a business, but what is one small change you could make every single day towards that greater goal so that it doesn't feel like I'm taking a huge risk or I'm quitting my job or I'm leaving my marriage, like whatever that big thing is. But what small steps could you take to make progress towards an improvement? That's very different than plunging in with everything that you've got. And I just think for a lot of it's so easy for us to listen to podcasts and authors and different things that are like, go for it, jump off the cliff, you can do it. And it's like, I just don't know if that works so well for everyone. And with my clients, it doesn't. And so this concept of smaller steps, one thing at a time, build it before you're ready, build it alongside, do it while you've got that stable income still. Like that just has been something that has worked so well for me and has obviously worked really well for the clients that I work with as well. And within your business, even in a corporate setting, you can do that as well. Big changes and big swings and big shift that riles everybody up. So how can we make a small shift at a time? In a year, we can look back and say, oh my goodness, look at all the change that happened. But it's a lot easier to do it in these small increments than blowing things up at one big shot. That's at least what I found.
I want to sort of jump in there too, because I faced a period in my life where, without even realizing it, I had sort of given up one by one all the things that brought me joy and found myself at a place where I was working 24/7, doing a ton of community, chaired like 5 boards at the same time. I had a sick parent, and I was just really like, I was maxed out and
Mhm.
not happy. And I ended up working with a coach, and I remember her asking me this question, like, well, what is something that you really miss doing? And I said, I used to walk every morning in the woods with a friend of mine. And it just was such a great way to start my day, clear my head. And she said, well, do you think you could do that? And I said, there's no way. I don't have capacity right now to do that.
Mhm.
And she said, well, do you have capacity to step out your front door for 1 minute and stand outside?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, I have capacity to do that. And so it was like that first micro shift to just make, because sometimes I think when you're in it, you're so overwhelmed that like the small step is still too big of a step.
Hmm.
You
Yeah.
need to make that micro shift sometimes. Is
A
that what
hundred
you have
percent.
found working with clients, Sarah?
Absolutely. And I think that's where
Yeah, and you
you
were
yeah, I was gonna say like the gurus and the tactics and all these big shifts and these big systems that you hear about, they're very hard to implement. And then one false move, you fall off the wagon and you think, oh, it's over. I can't do it. Where these micro shifts, like we're talking about, they're so easy to achieve. And if you miss it on Tuesday, it's okay. Try it again on Wednesday. You missed Wednesday, try Thursday. And we're always able to reset. And it gives people this quick win, which is just huge in terms of, I talk a lot about building momentum. It's just that first step in building momentum towards something bigger. So
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. Like when you were talking about, the big, like, oh, blow your life up. The, and then you were saying like, oh, you could do like something on the side and find your passion in that thing on the side. I started thinking of, when I kind of went through that mental, that kind of analysis for myself, I didn't want to do something different. Right. But I wanted to do what I was doing different. Right.
yeah.
I still loved architecture. I still loved running a company. I couldn't see myself doing anything else, but I wanted to do it differently. And do you run into women who are in that situation too? Because that turned out to be micro shifts in my existing life. Right.
Yes.
And I wish I had known the way that you're sort of putting this forward. Like, I wish I had known that so long ago. I think it could have helped me so much earlier in my career to say, like, start taking these little steps towards something bigger. I would have started so much sooner. So how do you help women through those moments?
Right. Seeing that it's not an all or nothing. Again, high achievers, our challenge is that we're like all in. And if we're doing something, we're doing it with 100%. And in this case, that actually can hurt us. That's what gets in our way sometimes. We're like, I'm going all in. I'm doing it at 150%. And it's like, no, do it at 2%. Like, see how that goes for a little while. Because we get so into it and invested and excited about
so hard
something. Yeah, but it's like, just do a little bit. And again, I hear all kinds of goals. People say, I want to write a book. I want to start a podcast. And it's like, just take those little micro steps every day, because in 6 months, in a year, you're going to look back and realize I did do it, instead of stalling out and saying, well, if I don't have 100 podcast episodes ready to go, I might as not record a podcast at all. And so this all or nothing mentality, I think, is what really gets in the way, again, especially as high achievers. But when we can break it down into micro, bite-sized, quick wins, small achievable goals, that's actually how we can create some really, really tremendous end results. Michelle, you also asked me earlier about like where I was in that moment. I think the other thing I want to make sure I share is that having people around you who believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself in those moments, is a really big deal. So that can be, Liz, your friend that walks with you in the woods. That can be a spouse. That can be a great friend, a partner. I think we underestimate how much support we really need from other people in a variety of ways. But the biggest piece of support I think that matters is people who really believe in you, like truly believe in you, and not in a false way, not encouraging you the way that maybe your chat GPT says you're amazing, but it's people who believe in you, who that when the time gets tough and when things get challenging, they're the people that say, keep going. Like, I see something in you and you can do this. So like a true belief in you, I think it's really important to find those people in your life.
Yeah. And Sarah, so you talk about like the difference between being busy, like it's like helping women identify what burnout is. We think we feel it. We're like, we're so busy, but there's a difference between being busy and being productive, right?
Yes.
And I feel like you're helping women distinguish between that. What is that difference and how do we identify it?
It's a really big deal, because so often we think, well, I'm busy all day. I must be productive because I spent hours doing this task. In reality, that this definition is really critical. So my definition of productivity is progress towards our priorities. Meaningful work in the movement of where we actually want to go. And so we can be busy all day and feel completely burned out. We can also work all day, like the same amount of hours, and feel amazing at the end of the day. That's productivity. The days that you feel amazing at the end of the day, those are the days that you think, I made progress. I got my micro win. I took that step. I made progress towards something that really matters to me. That feels productive. Very different than I worked all day and I've got nothing to show for it. Like it's 6 o'clock again, I feel like I didn't get anything done. I didn't get anywhere today. So that conceptually is a really big distinction that I try to help people make, because how many appointments are on your schedule, that does not determine if you're burned out or not. The burnout or not, the busy versus productive, is really about what do you feel like you accomplished at the end of the day towards something that actually matters to you. And that means it could matter for your career, your team, your business, but it's got to feel like I got somewhere today. I accomplished something. And when we do that and we feel productive at the end of the day, we're more energized to go back and do it again the next day.
So, Sarah, you have some concept called dominate your day. Walk us through what that means. I'm
Yeah. Well,
really
it's
interested in that.
what most people are when they hear it. They're like, yes, I want to dominate my day. So the first part of it is really what we just did, is describing what is that definition between busy and productive. And being productive, obviously, my version of productivity looks a little bit different than yours because I'm working towards a different goal, but we're making progress on that. So that's the first part. The other part is making sure that we know that we are in control, which, again, very simple concept in theory, but boy, does this blow people's minds when I talk about this. We feel like our schedule controls us, our boss controls us, our children control us. So whatever it is that's making us do the things that we're doing and how we're spending our time, it feels like it's out of our control. It feels like it's just a season that we're in. It'll be better later, but I can't control my time. That's how it feels to most people that I talk to. When in reality, when we zoom out, we actually can control pieces of our day. Again, I'm not saying the whole day, but micro pieces of the day. We always have that choice of what to work on next, which means we can choose to work on something that's in service of our goal, that's going to make us feel more productive. An example I like to give is when it's utter chaos, right? So Michelle, when your child calls you and says, I'm sick, I'm not feeling well, you jump into mom mode, you go into crisis mode, and you're like, I'll be there. You drop everything and you respond to that. We do this when we're in crisis mode, but that proves that we have the ability to do it all the time. We can always choose what to do next. We can always make that choice, but we tend to only tap into it when it's completely utter chaos. And so what I try to encourage people to think about is, even when it doesn't feel like it, like you have that choice to make the next thing that you work on something that's going to feel productive to you. So you can choose to check your email and respond to what everybody else wants of you, or you could say, you know what, I'm going to write a couple sentences of my book this afternoon. Like, that's a choice that I'm going to make. And so that shift is really critical for people to understand that they have permission to make choices. They can make choices, and then they can choose to work on something that's going to feel productive for them. That concept, which I just took a minute or two to explain, like, that is a big, big concept for people to wrap their heads around, because they just don't feel like they have permission or any control.
That's for sure. Yeah. And I'm just fascinated, Sarah. So when you obviously had this gift for productivity. I mean, you're arranging your Gatorades and your color coordinated background there, which is not a gift I have, by the way. So
I don't know
you
if it's a
clearly
blessing or a
saw
curse,
something in
but-
yourself that you felt. Well, they can be both at the same time, right? So it was whatever that is. I think is something that started to feed this idea of being so productive, right? So where did the concept for the business come from, and how? Like, because you're sort of saying to women, when this hits, like, you're not at a crossroad, you're not at a dead end. Like, you can start doing this other thing, potentially building something alongside each other. How did you do that? Take people through your story and how you started So Productive and started working with individuals and businesses.
Yeah. Well, what was happening for me was every woman, really, and men too, but mostly women I was talking to. And I said, how are you? They said, I'm busy. I'm busy. So that was really the catalyst for, okay, I'm feeling this way. And everyone else I talk to is feeling this way as well. So it was this natural, like, I think I need to do something about this. And Yes, I had a natural talent in productivity. I've always been a student of productivity. And so it felt like a gift that I was able to share and something that I could help people with. Fast forward, I was, really working with a coach who was helping me kind of decide what to work on next. And the pandemic hit. And so what happened was it was a really critical time for me to be able to really dive in and start this business at a time where businesses needed help with productivity more than ever before. Because all of a sudden they were going, wait, my team's remote. How do I even know what they're working on? How do I manage a remote team? How do I keep my team productive when I can't go check in on them? So there was this moment of opportunity that I recognized as well. So started coaching, working with individuals. Naturally, that led me to working with teams and consulting teams at a greater level. And then right after the pandemic really kind of wrapped up, it I started speaking and people said, "Can you come and speak about this topic?" And I said, "Yeah, sure. That sounds great." Uh, and then I realized, oh, speaking is a real avenue that allows me to reach hundreds, thousands of people at one time. And so I really got into the speaking side of things, right post pandemic there because it allowed me to just reach so many people. Like in an hour, I could touch so many people. And so that part of my business really developed from there. So now it looks like keynote speaking, conferences and events, workshops with corporate teams, and then certainly consulting and some coaching as well. So multiple ways that I can help both individuals and teams. And it's really for me about making an impact. We are in a burnout epidemic right now. This is a health crisis at this point. And so those are the ways that I feel like I can just get into teams and get into associations and events and really, really just touch as many people as possible.
Do you think that COVID really illuminated that? I felt like for me it did. When COVID hit and your calendar got cleared, essentially, um, I think a lot of people were like, "Oh, I'm living my best life. I don't have to go to an event every single night, and I don't have lunches every day."
Mhm.
And it was a little bit of a reset. And then I've been very interested to see how quickly after COVID we've gone back to that sort of crazy busy schedule.
Yes. COVID certainly put the light on it. It also put the light on, I hate to say like bad managers, and teams who were really struggling to manage teams effectively in this new remote environment. So from my business perspective, it kind of was like this perfect storm of like, we've got a real problem here. Businesses have a real problem here. And people are standing up for themselves and going, this isn't okay. Like, which I love. Work life balance is something I need a little bit more of. We could go down a rabbit hole on that phrase if you want. But that concept of like, this is not okay the way that we've been doing things. Now, I think what's really interesting is we thought coming out of the pandemic, people are taking a stand. They don't want to be as burned out anymore. Well, now since COVID has ended, we're kind of like right back where we started, plus more a lot of times. Because what happened, the walls came down in terms of you can work from anywhere. You never have to sign off. You've got Zoom and Teams on your phone. We can access you all of the time. Well, that hasn't really gone away. So some people put some boundaries up, but a lot of people, the middle-aged high achievers, have not. And so we're seeing this burnout really, really escalate because now we're back. So we're adding everything we had to do during COVID, all of the being on camera all day, being on all day, being accessible all day. And now it just doesn't turn off. And now we've added in all the in-person events back in as well. So it's just it's really it's gotten worse for people at the end of the day, which is tough. It's really challenging.
Do you see it generationally too? Because I know Gen X, I can speak for this generation just based on me and my friends. So I've got a good cohort to look at. There's
Mhm.
a ton of burnout, a ton of high achieving, a ton of never turn it off. And, I have to be the best mom. I have to be the best worker. I have to be the best this. I have to be the best at that.
Yeah.
And a lot of worn out, wearing out because of that. Do you see that? Is that across all the generations, or just in maybe in a different way? Or do you see the younger generations maybe handling it a little bit better? Maybe swinging a little too far to the other side sometimes?
Yeah.
What are you seeing there?
Yeah, well, I'm not a generational expert, but what I can speak to is the clients that I work with, the Gen X, like elder millennials. There's also this everything that you said, plus there's this posture of like I had to work hard, so I want them to do it too. Talking about Gen Z, so I have some people who are almost in this generational
So true.
competition.
It's so true.
And they're like, okay, so Gen Z's putting boundaries up, Gen Z's standing up for themselves, like Gen Z wants this balance, but like I didn't get it, so they shouldn't get it either. So I'm seeing that sometimes. I have a couple of friends who are lawyers, and it really plays out in this space, right? So now AI can do some of this work that the paralegals used to do and the junior associates used to do. And some of my friends that are lawyers are like, oh, no, no, I was up till 2 a.m. the night before a court case. They're going to do that too. And so there's these like earning your stripes. I call this the badge of busyness. So there's some of that going on. And I think when we're talking about Gen Z, again, I'm not an expert in this space. What I have seen is it's easy to sum up a generation, but what I'm seeing is it really at an individual level. So I've got some younger clients they're in it just as much as the Gen Xers are, but that's them personally. So I really, from my experience, I can't say, yes, it's generational and Gen Z's better. I think holistically they might be. They might be standing up for themselves a little bit more. But at an individual level, I've got some Gen Z clients that are in just as bad a shape as the older women.
Are you starting, you mentioned AI in the legal example. Are you starting to see AI be helpful on the productivity side of things
Okay,
with your
here's what I'll
clients?
say. And I don't know if you want to timestamp this podcast or not. So it is early mid 2026 right now, and I think it's important to say that in terms of this conversation, because where it's going to go, AI is incredible right now. What I'm seeing, and this is subject to change next week with AI, but what I'm seeing right now is that we have this amazing technology available to us that can help us with tasks and take tasks that used to be mundane, repetitive, manual, and do those tasks for us. The challenge I'm seeing, again, in summer 2026, is that we're spending a lot of time learning AI and figuring out the prompts and asking it for feedback and asking it, look at that email, look at it again, make it nicer this time, read it one more time. So, what I'm actually seeing is our net result is not that much better than what it would have been if we just wrote the email ourselves, but we're spending a lot of time prompting and going back and forth with it. So, today, I think it's slowing us down actually a little bit from a productivity perspective. I think in 6 months to a year, we're going to get past that and we're going to get better at prompting, having custom built agents. So I think it's going to get there. But I think this is a moment of we're slowing down to speed up. And I think we'll get there. But right now, I'm like, oh my gosh, people are actually taking a lot of time to run stuff through AI when their AI is not quite there yet to help them. And so there needs to be an investment in time and technology to get AI to really be optimized so that in 6 months or a year, it can be absolutely amazing to us. So I think it's going to change everything, but it's slowing us down a little bit right now. I'll say that.
Well, bringing it back to the more practical, side of things in terms of, because you're right, like trying to figure out where AI is going to go is like, it's a prediction I don't think even nobody can make. Just like right
Yeah.
now, you can guess, but for the person who's listening who feels like just buried under meetings and emails and to-do lists, right? What are some practical steps that you can give to them right now to at least start on that journey of trying to get things a little more under control?
Yeah. Well, first off, I would say it's really important to think about, again, your definition of productivity. So if you take my definition, progress towards your priorities, and you attach your goal to that, what you want from that. So it could be, my goal is to get to the next level within my organization. I want to get that promotion. I want to get to that next level. Well, progress towards your priorities are going to be outlining what steps is it going to take for you to get there. And then spending a little bit of time each day to work towards that particular goal. And so first think about, what do you want? Like, put yourself at the airport, and when someone says, "Where are you going?" Like, what's your answer to that? And maybe it's Omaha, but maybe it's like, "I actually want to be a senior VP." So thinking about where you want to go, what steps can you take to get there? And then here's the real tactical part: put a little bit of time in your calendar to make that happen. And that could look like, Liz walking outside for 1 minute. That could look like 15 minutes to write a few sentences of the book you want to write. But outlining clearly what you want and some real small steps to help you get there, I think that's the best first step that anyone can take. And then that means that if there's just not enough time to answer that final email, it's okay. You hold it to tomorrow. But we're playing a prioritization puzzle all the time. And so the permission I want to give people today is, you have permission to put 15 minutes on your calendar to prioritize yourself and something that really matters to you, whether that's a personal or a professional goal. And if you take that 15 minutes or 5 minutes, whatever it is, that's going to change how you feel at the end of the day. And so step one, think about what you want, where you want to go. Step two, outline some micro steps to help you get there. And step three, put a little bit of time on your calendar so that you can achieve that.
And do you, the way you've outlined it, do you think that people should write down these goals and these steps? Does that make it more concrete, or does it not matter?
I would. And I like to use a task management software. You could use a notebook, but I think it's really critical to write down the steps that you want to take. So what are those micro tasks that you want to accomplish? When you make that appointment with yourself, actually put in one of those tasks. So what happens for a lot of us is we sit down and look at the calendar, and it's 10 o'clock on Tuesday, work on my goal. If that's what it says, you're not going to do it. But if you sit down Tuesday at 10 o'clock and it says, write 4 sentences for your book, you will do it. So it's about making it very, very specific so that you can actually achieve it. So I would write it down, again, in a notebook, on your task management software, whatever you like to use. Write it down so you'll do it, make it very specific. And then the cool part is, when you actually cross it off the list, like, I always like nice to grab a big pen and be like, cross it off the list, because it feels so good. But that progress actually creates momentum. And that's a really big deal for us to look back at that list and go, I got 10 things off my list. Yeah, there's 100 things on it, but I got 10 things done this week. Like, how good does that feel? And again, that's that feeling of being productive over busy. You can start to see the progress. So I'm a big proponent of writing it down, make a list, because we need to be able to see the progress that we're making.
So when you have that list, it can also be a trap, right?
Yeah.
For me, and I think you could relate to this, which is like, the list is never ending. And
Never.
so I can feel good that I hit some things on it and that they were important things, but there's still all these other things. So if I take that, hour or two to binge a couple shows I've been dying to watch, I'm feeling guilt, like massive
Yes.
guilt, because something didn't get done for my kids, or an email didn't go out that was very important. And like, the world's going to fall apart because I decided to take a few minutes for myself. So how do you talk women? How do you talk anyone, but especially women, through that?
Yeah. So, Michelle, there's a term for that called stress laxing, which is you are trying to relax,
Okay.
but you're
I'm
so
stress lax.
stressed out that what you're doing is making you more stressed than you're like, I'm so stressed out about what I'm supposed to be doing, I can't even relax. So that's stress laxing. So that's what we're experiencing. My encouragement is
Yeah.
actually to lower the bar. So when we've got 100 things on the list, just lower the bar for yourself. Pull out 3 priorities that you have for the next day that you say, if I got these 3 things done tomorrow, I would feel productive. I would feel really good about this. Get those 3 things on your calendar, because guess what? The 100 things are still sitting there. You're going to find them. But as soon as you get one thing done, you can pull another thing. So it's really, again, prioritization is the name of this game. We got to be able to pick out the most important things, the most impactful things, get those things done first. And really, 3 at a time is the right number for people.
And what about our listener who has a job or a situation where they do not control their day oftentimes, that they are constantly, responding to others' needs and requests. How do we help those people?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, again, even when it doesn't feel like it, you're still making a choice, right? So even if your job is answer the phone every single time it rings, like what we do next is still a choice that we are making. So I wanna say that really critical in those types of roles and moments is to think about being in coordination with your leadership, with your manager, to make sure that you're actually working on the right things. Because again, what feels busy versus feels productive is, did we get somewhere today? So even if your job is responsive, even if you feel like I'm not in control of my day, I don't set my own schedule, you can feel productive at the end of the day if you hit a goal, if you hit a metric, if you feel like I accomplished something today. So part of what people who are feeling like, I don't know, is having a conversation with your manager, with your leadership around, if I hit this metric, like, is that what you're expecting of me today? Because part of this is just making ourselves feel good about what we accomplished today and knowing that that is contributing to the team's goal, to the company's goal, having that why behind answering the phone as soon as it rings. Like, why does that matter? When we know that, we can actually leave work feeling much, much better off than just, oh, I just answer the phone all day. So part of it is leadership making sure that we know what's expected of us and why it matters. And the why it matters piece is hugely, hugely critical to motivate people on your team. And then if we're the employee, it's really on us to think about, okay, it's my job to think about how can I make sure that I'm setting some goals for myself and feeling like I'm accomplished something. And so often that just requires a conversation with leadership, which I know people don't want to have, but it really is. My new keynote's called The Clarity Gap. And it's really, really talking about this because so often leadership's got goals for us. And then we're supposed to do this work, but there's a miscommunication on that front. And so we've got people that are just spinning their wheels, feeling like they're not getting anywhere. So it's really about bridging that gap between what does leadership want? What do we want as individuals and people? And coming together and having a conversation around that. So everybody, regardless of role, can set their day up for success and feel good about what they're accomplishing.
That's really great advice if somebody's in an organization and, kind of wants to make an impact there. If we get back to the individual or even the organization who starts working with you, but I think it might be easier to see on an individual level, and how they come in. Let's say they're at the peak of burnout. They're coming to you because they're just at wit's end. What's the difference when they start working with you? And then how long does it take to get to what? Where are you trying to get them to? And how do you want them to feel X number of weeks, months later from when they started to what you're out to achieve with them?
Yeah, well, and it really depends. I mean, sometimes in 5 minutes, people are like, I feel better already. I'm like, great, cool. Sometimes it takes a lot longer. Just depends on the individual. Yeah. But
Yeah.
one of the first steps really is giving people that permission. And it's come up a few times today, is like you're allowed to make a choice. You are allowed to be in control. You are allowed to say, I'm gonna be done working at 5 o'clock and I'm not gonna sign back on tonight. Like you're allowed to do that. And I think one of the most challenging but most helpful steps when we can get through that is really helping women especially recognize that they are in control of their life. they can make a choice and they have permission to do it. And sometimes what I have to tell people, because I've had to learn this myself, is that we're not abandoning other people. Like when we put ourselves first, it actually is helping other people. If we're not okay, if we're burned out, if we have insomnia, that's not going to serve everyone else well either. So often the reason we're not in control is because we're serving everybody else. We're putting everyone else first and we're putting ourselves last. And so this biggest obstacle that I have to overcome with clients is you have to put yourself first, and it's okay to do that. Like that concept is a really, really big one for us to overcome, because when you put yourself first and take care of yourself first, well, then you're in a better position to help everyone else as well. Like they don't want the burned out version of you. They want the best version of you, and putting yourself first is the way to do it. So I would say that mindset shift is probably the biggest hurdle we have to overcome right away, is permission, control, and like you're allowed to put yourself first. That is a massive concept for a lot of high achieving women. That's very, very hard. So that can take a little while. And we got to do a lot of work to talk through that. And then from there, the rest is almost easier. The rest is, what task management software are you using? How do you process your tasks? How do you set up your calendar? Like what AI tools can help? So the systems, like tactical productivity, traditional productivity side of it, that's the easier part. This mindset shift at the beginning, that we're allowed to do things, that's the harder part for sure.
I'm so glad that you brought that up, because years ago when I was working in Washington, D.C., I had a friend of mine who she was a first year associate, but she'd been a law clerk at the firm. So she'd been at the firm a couple of years, but she was only in a first year associate position. And a partner came to her at something like 6 o'clock and said, I need this memo from you, with the full expectation that she would deliver it by like 8 o'clock that night. And she said, "Great, I'd be happy to work on it. I will get it to you tomorrow morning by 10." Which really like threw him off. He was like,
Mhm.
oh, well, okay, I guess so. And he left. And I could, in my office was next to hers, I could overhear this conversation. And then she left for the night. And I said, "Oh, do you have a appointment or something?" And she said, "Yeah, I have a kickboxing class at 6:30." And I said, "You just said no to a partner to go to a kickboxing class?" And she said, "My kickboxing class is important to me." And I
Yeah.
thought that that was such a great lesson so early on in her career, that she was willing to prioritize her needs at the same level of somebody else's needs. And by
Yeah.
the way, her career trajectory did just fine. She's like, sits on the board of one of the largest 5 publicly traded companies in the world. So she made out okay. But I learned very early on, watching her, that prioritizing yourself is important. It's a lesson that I don't often remember sometimes,
Yeah.
and I have to like check myself on it. But it was a good lesson. So.
It feels like that same concept of boundaries, like just
Mhm.
getting boundaries that you hold to, and that, I have to do it with my kids. I have to do it with my business. Like that,
Mhm.
this is just something, it's an expectation. I'm not going to give in on this one, right? Because this is the boundary that's important to me. Um, but Sarah, so, as we're kind of starting to get near the end of this, which has just been so, like, there's so much good stuff that you've just shared, like talk about resources and, shared experience. There's like so many great takeaways for our listeners here, and, who can also, learn a lot more about you, and we'll put all that in the show notes. But I'm just wondering if you could go back in time to you sort of at, in that early part of your career, and you could give that young woman advice, what would it be?
I would say that it will be okay. And really, to Liz's story that she just shared, like it's okay to say no. It's okay to say boundaries. Like when you are a capable woman who can accomplish so much, people are going to respect you more when you respect yourself and your boundaries. And when you've had a good night's rest and a nice weekend, you can come back and actually be more productive the next day. that's going to serve yourself and everyone else around you. So just that it's going to be okay. Like, you're going to be fine. You don't have to burn yourself out to be successful. And the fact that I said this earlier, like, your worth is not tied to your work. Your work is not who you are. It might be a big piece of you. You know, my business is called So Productive, which is also my initials, and it has that double meaning. And it's such a part of who I am. It's not all that I am. And I think it's really important that our worth and our value is so much greater than beyond how many hours we work.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't have said
Yeah.
it better.
Yeah. Sarah, thank you so much for sharing this wisdom with us. I mean, I think all of our listeners, no matter where they are in their lives, probably feel this way that, sometimes their schedule is controlling them versus them controlling their schedule. And I think that your tips and hacks for dealing with that are such great advice.
Thank you.
And I did want to ask, what's the difference between so productive and super productive?
Yeah. So productive is really my speaking, consulting, coaching side of things. Super productive is the business that I have with a business partner. And that's where we implement productivity software, typically working with Asana, which is a wonderful task management software. And we actually implement that software onto clients' platforms and help them install that and roll it out.
So cool. That's so cool. Oh, well, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Are there any nuggets of wisdom or anything that have been left unsaid or anything we didn't ask that you feel like our listeners should really know?
Just that you got it. You can do it, and you don't have to do it all. You know, it's a question that comes up in FAQs when I'm speaking. How do I do it all? And it's probably the number one question that I get. And one is that you don't have to do, quote, it all. Defining what it all is for you, I think, is a really, really critical first step. And then just let go of the rest. You know, prioritizing something that matters to you for a season of the year, for a season of life is great. And then try something else, accomplish that and then do another thing rather than trying to do it all. I really believe in focusing on like one major thing at a time so that you can get that across the finish line and feel really good about it. So don't try to do it all. Lower your expectations, lower the bar. And actually, in the end, I think you're going to be able to accomplish more when you do that.
That's
Great
good
advice.
Yeah, that's great advice to end on. And I do want to say, Sarah, that Spark Me is the result of Liz and I lowering the bar.
I know that came out exactly the way.
Just giving ourselves permission to do something that we enjoy, right?
Yeah. No, we did. I mean, and it took us a couple of years to get it off the ground. And we just, honestly, we did the same thing that you talked about when we had setbacks. We just said, okay. And, made a little bit of progress, every week until suddenly here we are. So
thank you so much for joining us today, and doling out this wisdom at a younger age than us. You are very wise. So we really appreciate your time and sharing all of this with us. Thank you, Sarah.